Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tim Radio Show. I'm your host, Tim Radio. This is episode number 14, and it is November 15th. So we're going to jump into this with some news on Don Cherry. So he got fired from Sportsnet there for the show called Hockey's Corner and Hockey Night in Canada. So they fired him because he kind of went on this little rant about wearing the poppy, and they kind of equated it to him saying that new immigrants into Canada aren't wearing the poppy, that they're not adopting it. I made a case last week basically saying that even if he was saying that specifically, it's not racist to say that. It's not a racist thing to say, hey, newcomers adopt our way of life, like assimilate. Hey, new people assimilate. Nothing wrong with saying that. And, you know, if he actually meant that technically, or if he was just actually saying whatever. So I actually want to show this little mashup thing where it's him actually kind of using that same phrasing multiple times.
Change. You just have to change. You can't go on the way you are. And I said, well, Johnny Carson hasn't changed. And I went from there, and I haven't changed, and I'm not changing now, and that's a little treat for you fellas. Is that ridiculous? I'll tell you one thing there. You people that are against fighting, you should be ashamed of yourself. You people out there, if you're listening and you're doing it, and you should get involved in this too. Birdman, remember now, how many times I know you people on this thing said, and there's Yager saluting. You people will get upset at that, and maybe somebody will say you shouldn't do this. You know what? It's wonderful. Now, I'm not putting anybody down. All you people out there that you had, you know, watching the parade and you're watching the thing like that, you're putting the flowers down, that's terrific. So you people should get involved. I'm going to be involved. Helmets, the hard hats, the greatest people in the world next to our troops. So come on, get involved in this. It's the Canadian way.
So, I mean, come on. It's pretty hard to dock the guy for saying that and then equating it to, like, anti-immigration stuff or something like that. So crazy. I'm pretty sure he's going to get his own internet show or something like that. They're going to hook him up somehow. They already regret it. They ran that when he actually did that little thing before with the original clip. They played that like 3 times. Even the co-host was like nodding his head saying, yeah, well, we love you for it. And because then he plays a little PSA thing where he's actually in France and he's kneeling down at the thing. And but so they played that whole thing several times, and then they got like complaints and stuff, and then they folded. So this PC culture kind of thing's crazy. People just getting fired for stuff. And the guy's like 85, so even if he did say something, like if he actually said something kind of, you know, oh, oof, you can't say that anymore or something like that, even then, the guy's 85. I mean, you got to give certain people a break when they grew up certain places and certain times, and that's not even the case. That's not even the case. What he actually said was actually politically correct in, you know, in the way that he uses you people. Like, he clearly says it without referencing specific kinds of people. But anyway, so, you know, you have something like that, but then
or whatever.
Check this.
That's childish.
What do you think of Cory Booker's, and you didn't comment on him, and you feel free
Oh,
to.
I adore him.
What do you think about him saying kick them in the shins, essentially? Start to get to that kind of political.
Well, that was Eric Holder.
Yeah, Eric Holder,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I know they all look alike.
No, they don't. Oh, well done. You know, Hillary.
Like that's a bad joke. Like, that's a bad joke. But that's not the end of the world. Like, I don't even necessarily hold that against her for saying something like that. It's kind of off the cuff. It's a stupid thing to say. It's insensitive. It can be offensive. All that kind of stuff. But even that, that's not going to be the thing I use against her. You know, that's not why I don't like. There's many reasons I don't like her, and you know, the way she says things isn't really one of them. You know, her policies and stuff like that speak louder, and her actual actions, the way she actually acts in public, and the people she's defended and stuff like that over the years, the creepy stuff she's into, those things are worrisome. Not just when people say stupid stuff all the time. Like, so many people say stupid stuff, and we're going to see more of that right here. This is a really good clip. I'm just going to play a couple minutes of it, but he's basically breaking down this comment that Michelle Obama said a little while ago, where she was talking about white flight, where basically she moved into a neighborhood and it was like mostly a white neighborhood, and then basically all the white people were fleeing the neighborhoods because all these black people were coming in. And so and she says, like, you're still running, like, white people are still running away from black people. So Larry Elder just basically takes that whole logic and just destroys it. And I'll just play a clip so you can.
Race of the school board, irrespective of the race of the teacher, all across America, black boys are disproportionately kicked out or suspended from school. Even in Oakland, where the Oakland School Board was predominantly, quote, people of color, black boys were substantially more likely to be kicked out or suspended than non-black boys. You cannot blame it on racism. Now, if you're a white kid going to a school where there's more violence and black kids are disproportionately kicked out, and you go home and you tell your parents about this, what do you think your parents are going to do? Back to Michelle Obama. In 2008, when her husband was running for president, they were interviewed by Steve Croft of 60 Minutes. Croft asked her the following.
This is a tough question to ask, but a number of years ago, Colin Powell was thinking about running for president, and his wife, Alma, really did not want him to run. She was worried about some crazy person with a gun.
Now, I don't want to be mean or weird or anything like that, but there is theories that she's actually a dude and he's gay. I know that's crazy to say. It's totally ridiculous, but it's one of those theories out there. I mean, the birther thing's definitely real. He definitely wasn't born, or they at least faked the birth certificate. So that's definitely true. I checked that up and down, left and right. I'll cover that in another episode. But he definitely at least faked that birth certificate that they launched. And there's some other funny stuff like that, and there's kind of like some weird mix-up things, calling her Michael. Actually calling her Michael on several occasions. But anyway, it's just one of those weird things. It's kind of fun to go check out like silly stuff if you whatever.
Has that been a factor? I mean, have you talked about that? Is that something that you think about?
I don't lose sleep over it because the realities are that, as a black man, Barack can get shot going to the gas station.
So she's admitting that her neighborhood is dangerous. Again, does that at all contribute to what she complained about, white flight? Now let's talk about education. Michelle Obama says that she went to a public school, and that's true.
So I'll kind of save it. It's just a couple minutes here. Basically what he says is like he just points out these kind of inconsistencies in the logic, that it's not necessarily racism or something like that. There's a lot of factors that would play into, demographics changing in a community. So just people, like if the school system sucks and people leave that area, and then in another case they complain about gentrification, so then white people moving back into a neighborhood that would be predominantly black, like he goes on to mention like in parts of New York, and then they complain about that. So then it's like he kind of plays those kind of dualistic logic there. So anyway, it's good, it's nice to listen to. Won't play the whole thing there, I'll probably get copy striked, but check it out, it's kind of neat. Anyway, just on the the whole what's racist, what's not kind of topic. And to carry that, I want to bring up, because this ties into a couple other guests, this guy Jesse Lee Peterson. He has a radio show every day, every work day, I guess, and he also works at it's like he's a reverend, and he does a church sermons and stuff in, I think it's San Francisco, and he's a pretty religious guy. He's pretty classic conservative. He's like 80 years old or something like that. Grew up literally picking cotton and like on like a plantation and stuff, and he kind of talks about those kind of things and just what the dynamics were at that time, and that even when there was segregation, like white people and black people weren't like hating each other. It's just like it was like companies and stuff that were doing that, and government, it wasn't really them. Like they didn't really seem to mind themselves so much. I mean, this is what he's saying. So anyway, and he has this kind of weird way of trolling people. I don't know if he's really trolling them or if it's just this weird thing, but he'll just ask people super basic questions and they won't be able to answer it. So it's constantly throwing them off. And so we'll just play some clips of this, and you'll kind of get an idea, and it'll make sense in a minute.
What do you say to a person like me who realized that racism is an illusion and it's made up by people who are liars? What's your proof that racism exists? So, but maybe I asked the wrong question then. So what does it feel like knowing that black people are inferior?
more conscious about what you're asking. You need to be, as a commentator, more informed about politics before you iterate, because it's the people behind the microphones that are spewing out these things that are not to be true.
That's amazing.
That's not true.
Do you love white people?
You
see that white man over there by the camera? Sure. Doesn't he look like Jesus? Let me ask you, do you love white people?
Do I love white people?
Do you love white people?
I don't care about them. I'm indifferent.
Do you love them? You love white people? So do you love white people?
Okay, so I'm telling you, I don't care
I didn't
about
ask
them.
if
I'm
you
indifferent.
cared about them. I asked if you loved them.
There's some that I do love, not all.
I love everybody. But I'm only asking about white people only.
Why? What makes you say that?
Because your mother's white.
No, my mother's not white.
Your father's white.
Yes, my biological father
so
is
like
white.
All
I don't
the way
identify.
white then.
I do not identify as white. I identify as African American.
Why? Why would you take the lower dummies and go that route rather than going with the smart people?
We are not born to hate anyone.
Right.
So.
And do you love white people? And how can you love black people?
So you get the idea. That's just kind of like his kind of method of dealing with people, usually leftists. So people that are, and like if you actually go watch these interviews and stuff, the people he's talking to, they're pretty extreme in a lot of cases. These are people that hold pretty strong views on something. And so this is kind of his way of like throwing them off or just kind of exposing them. So they'll be talking about like, you know, it'll be someone for Black Lives Matter or something like that, and he'll be asking, do you love white? And they'll be like, I love all people. And they'll be like, yeah, but do you love white people? And they just won't say yes. Like, they refuse to actually say yes. It's just a weird thing. And then you can actually see this. I should have brought this up too. But there's this really cool video where this girl went to a Trump rally, and the thing just had lineups all around the block, people going in there. And then there's people across the street protesting them, like, racist, no KKK, no race, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, just saying, like, implying that the other people going to the rally are racists and stuff, and that Trump's a racist. And the girl went back and forth and just kind of said, like, hey, would you want to come over and talk to these people and see what they have to say? And, like, so she kind of crosses people over, and clearly it's one side. Like, the people in the Trump rally, which is like the black guy was like, do you think I'd be safe in there? And virtually everybody was like, yeah, dude, come on, you can come with me. Like, come on, man, you'll be right next to me. Don't worry about it. Come on. Like, tell him, like, yeah, man, don't worry about that stuff. You crazy? Yeah. And the guy was actually really nervous about even going in there because he thought that, you know, he just had this impression that Trump supporters are racist and stuff. And there's like maybe two people that responded negatively, and it kind of seems like they just thought that, you know, they're being trolled by the left or something like that, or like implying that, like they kind of read into the fact that it's implying that they're racist, and they're like, get the fuck out of here, man. So they kind of did, you know what I mean? So, but then like virtually everybody on that side was, you know, like, yeah, come. But then they go to the other side, and then they're just trying to talk to the people that are protesting, and like they're screaming at them, they're doing the blowhorn thing in their face, they're like, they won't even talk to them, they're like dumping stuff on them, they're grabbing them, all this crazy stuff. And it like really shows the difference between the left and the right. You got a silent majority on one side, and then you got like these crazy loudmouth crazy people on the other side. And it's not to say that's the case on the political, you know, policy side, because there's left policies and right policies, but the people that you see on the ground, you know, bubbling up and stuff like that on one side versus the other, you know, it's a pretty big difference. And this kind of shows it too, because he's I would say he's a far right guy, but since he's a black guy, whenever he talks to people, they assume like he's a Democrat. So when he asks these weird things, like he'll call Trump the Great White Hope, and they'll just be like, "What? How can you say that?" Like, and he like offends other black people for that. They get offended because he talks like that. So that kind of ties into the stuff earlier. Like, you can't cancel this guy because he has his own show. He's doing his own thing. It's kind of, you know, it's kind of hard to pull the plug on him. It's just his show. And people can attack him, but it's just like he doesn't care. It's kind of like the Trump position where it's just like, I'm already exposed. There's nothing to expose about it. I'm just going to keep talking the way I talk, you know, and try to get my point across. And so it's brutish. It's a brute tactic. It's kind of weird, but it's really fascinating to see how people respond to that. I think it's more interesting to see how people respond. I think it says more about them than it does about him. So he was actually Cenk Uygur. We talked about this guy yesterday. He's running for a seat to replace this girl here, Katie Hill. So he's actually running for Congress. I predicted this. I didn't predict. I kind of saw it earlier, but he didn't announce it, and I think we covered this in yesterday's episode. But I'm like, yeah, he's totally running. He backed Bernie so that Bernie can turn around and back him. I knew that's what he would actually do. And so yeah, he announced it, and he put this up, running for blah blah blah, and it's this seat here from this girl, which if you saw her in the news, she had to step down because she got in all this trouble with, she's a bisexual person that was having like a 3-way relationship. While she was in like got these photos leaked and stuff, and she was going through this divorce, and they were like kind of going back and forth with what, like she was leaving one guy and then stay with the girl, and then the guy and the other girl were still. It was just weird, like this whole weird, bizarre thing. Especially with the whole Me Too movement kind of stuff, because the staffer, like she was having a relationship with a staffer, and that was kind of the ethics violation. And she kind of denied it, and then it's just, I don't know, it's just a really weird thing, and then she had to step down. Obviously some kind of freak. So anyway, this guy's actually going for her position for that seat. It's almost too perfect. But this guy's total turd. I mean, such a turd. We're gonna mock him here for a little bit. So he's on Jesse Lee Peterson's show, and of course Jesse Lee's gonna do the thing he does. And he's got to know what he's like. I mean, do people not... Sometimes I see like these interview shows where they're pranking them and stuff like that, and they just don't even... This guy's been on the air for years. How does he not know who he is? Or research him, like going on the show, I'm going to at least watch a couple episodes of this guy. And then later in like another interview on his show, the TYT, with Anna Kasparian or whatever, they kind of like play the clips and stuff, like a couple of clips, and kind of make them... Like, but they're kind of laughing it off, like it's like it's just really awkward looking. It's dumb, but this interview here, I'll just play a minute to it.
Jake, I want to ask. There's an attack upon men, especially straight, white, Christian, conservative men of power. Do you agree there's an attack upon men?
They haven't attacked me yet. So, no, I don't think I agree.
You don't agree. And I know that you are a male. What is a man? A
man who, yeah, if you want to go to classical definitions, there's a couple different ways to look at it. So, of course, we could go biological.
Like, there's this weird kind of laughy thing. Like, he's just, like, almost like he's too good for this, and he's kind of entertaining you, kind of thing. And, like, he's just kind of asking the question, like, it's kind of a philosophical thing. It's kind of very basic. It's like, what is a man? What is life? What is love? So it's that kind of thing. But it's a pretty easy thing to answer. But you don't really have to jump around it like something like you're not allowed to answer the question.
But I think you guys know how that one is.
Right.
And then if you want to look at in terms of being a man, I'm probably not like some liberals these days that'll say, hey, no, it doesn't really matter. I think it matters. I think it is someone who stands up and is strong and provides. So, yeah.
So a man...
And you see, I kind of hear some honesty there in his face, like he relaxes a bit. You can kind of tell that he's like... In the comment he makes about like a lot of liberals say, basically there's a lot of like beta males on the left where... that's just kind of a term they use, that just they don't have the confidence, they don't know how to do things, they just fold on everything. They push a lot of issues that just aren't really whatever, so that's just kind of a perspective. But so he kind of agrees, like he's kind of acknowledges that, and you can see versus before he gets very tense and stuff, and he kind of being honest with that. But
and is a male who stands up strong and provide.
Sure, let's go with that.
And so, are you a man?
I hope to God I am, yeah.
You're not sure?
I'm pretty sure, but I think that other people get to judge.
I read that you were raised Muslim, but
I mean, I wouldn't even really agree with that. Say, I guess other people would get to judge. I mean, if you're a man or not, I don't know. If you're waiting for people to judge you if you're a man, I think that qualifies you not being a man. If you're talking about, the philosophical aspect of it, I guess.
You're now an atheist or an agnostic. Is that true?
Yes, I was born into a Muslim family, but we were pretty secular, so we barely practiced to begin with, and now I'm agnostic. Yep.
And so, what is it? So, does that mean that you don't believe in God?
That's exactly what it means. Yes.
What does it feel like?
And he used to also be a Republican, so apparently he was a Republican Muslim, but now he's an atheist liberal.
To live a life without a belief in God.
It feels fantastic. It's liberating. You don't have to live under the mythical, theoretical, non-existent thumb of some overseer who's watching and judging everything you do, and you could actually live.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Christians really are dealing with.
Your life and enjoy it and be free.
Do you agree with me that you serve one God, either the God of good or the God of evil, because human beings are not in control of their own lives? You're influenced by either good or evil?
No, I do not believe that at all. I don't believe any part of that statement, no.
Really? And so where do you get your values from?
You get it from culture. And so culture is multifaceted. Your parents are a huge, huge part of it. The context that you grew up, the environment, and the media is a big part of it, for better or for worse. And you put all that together, and those are the influences that affect your decisions.
And how do you know that the values that you're getting from culture are the right values?
Oh, you don't know. Oftentimes people get very bad values. For example, a lot of people who live in the South live in a right-wing culture that leads them down a dark path.
And give me that.
I like how he spun that one. A lot of people in the South, so he's blaming the South for being on the right, for being conservatives, and it leads them down a dark path. All right.
Example.
It seems like he believes this. Like he's believing what he's saying.
People who believe that guns are the answer, and they have guns all over their house, and lo and behold, somebody accidentally used it or used it in a moment of anger, winds up dying. It's a
I actually covered this on yesterday's episode, and just kind of a quick recap. Basically 80% of the gun deaths that ever happen are from people who don't own the gun legally, so can't conflate legal and illegal gun owners. Also, the majority of the weapons that are used to commit crimes are gangbangers killing each other, and it's pistols. So it's not even rifles. It's not guys. Nobody lines up their walls with pistols. Some places might put up a rifle on the wall or something like that, and the chances of the kid picking up that gun and shooting themselves by mistake is astronomically nil. And on top of that, I kind of use that logic to kind of reference vaccine and herd immunity. So I kind of made the case that opting into opting into gun ownership, practicing gun ownership, is actually a way to create herd immunity since most of the crimes are committed by people who don't own it legally. Then your only defense is essentially an offense. Like not to go out to get these people, but you're able to actually defend yourself in your home. And if you actually look at the homicide stats, it has it's not people dying from accidentally shooting a gun in their house. It's people a lot of times attacking a place and getting killed. That's some of the stats. So someone trying to rob a house and they get shot. So the homeowner is defending themselves. That happened, and statistically, it's more likely that guns are used to prevent crimes in more cases than they're used to commit crimes. So you can prevent more crimes with guns in the cases of excluding everyone on law enforcement and just like legal concealed gun owners. People in Detroit, they said right now, I think it was 1 in 10 people in Detroit right now, 1 in 10 people have concealed carry permits in Detroit. And even the sheriff there was saying, no, this is good because, we can't get there in time. It's a minute for a crime to happen. So if people are able to defend themselves and learn how to use these properly, then it's a great tool for defense. And oftentimes these perpetrators will go after people that they assume are unarmed, that they're vulnerable. So women and young kids and stuff like that. So if you have a mother that there's a good chance that she has a pistol on her, you're going to be a lot less likely to carjack and stuff like that. That's a statistical provable fact by, like, in current day statistics, just by the fact that that's what you see in Detroit right now. Those aren't the people shooting each other. It's not the moms owning the guns. It's not the 1 in 10 concealed carries that are killing people. It's the people who don't have those things that are illegally gangbanging, shooting each other 80% of the time. So I was kind of making that case, but anyway, so just stuff like that. I hate when, especially guys like this, that they have a big platform and they just don't say things honestly. Like, it's just not true. It's just something I don't even think he believes it. It's just a talking point.
Tiny example, but other examples, people who judge others for being gay, for being the wrong color, because they.
And just a quick thing on that, I don't think that any Christian would say that they judge people for being gay. They just say it's a sin. So they know it's not their place to judge. And if a gay person does something, it doesn't mean you can't do that with, you can't have dinner with a gay person. Something that means none of that at all. It simply means they say that it's a sin, just like something else is. And then somewhere in this clip here, they actually say this. I'm going to leave this guy for you guys to watch. But he actually mentions that point later is... he basically says, you eat shrimp, and he's like, yeah. He's like, well, that's in Leviticus or something, so you can't eat shellfish, so you're sinning. So he's like, okay, so are you saying since I eat shellfish, then homosexuality is a sin? Because it actually says it's an abomination. And he's like, no, I'm just saying, you guys should follow your logic. It's like, well, you're using my logic against me, and I'm agreeing. I'm saying, okay, that's a sin. I still think that's also a sin. It's like you're allowed to sin. The whole concept of free will is that ability, that's the difference, to be able to choose those, an action between good or evil. But, it's just weird. It's weird logic. And that's just the way he kind of argues. And I'll show you that just another clip here. It might be a little frustrating to watch, but check this out.
In your question as well. So just real quick, look, guys, I said it however many questions ago. Of course, you have to find the right balance on all of these issues, including taxes. So I never said there's no end to how much you can.
I'm just asking why, though.
Yeah. So
just a little context here. Ben Shapiro was asking, because Cenk Uygur was saying, we used to have really high taxes in like the 30s or something, and it was like 80% highest tax rate was like 80 or 90%. So the richest people were paying like 80% tax rates. And he's like, we had wicked growth then, so it doesn't hurt to have put up taxes. That's essentially what his point was. So Ben Shapiro was like, well, why don't you just put it at 100 or like 99? Like, where do you stop the tax rate at?
this leads to wait a minute. This leads to big government versus small government. You're asking me what the ideal tax rate is, and then you did a straw man there for a second and said it should be 100%. I never said that.
No,
in fact, I said.
So the crowd's kind of laughing because they know they're watching him for a little bit. This is just a clip of it, but they're watching him kind of pivot and all this kind of stuff, and just kind of arguing the semantics instead of not even the semantics. He's just not addressing. It's like he doesn't get the question. A lot of times he's not understanding what point Shapiro's trying to make, or he gets the point and he just doesn't want to play into it, so he's just trying to skate around.
No, you said the economy. You said the economy grew faster when the top marginal tax rate was 91%. So I'm asking you, why shouldn't the top tax rate or all tax rates be 91%? You seem to be identifying a higher rate of growth with higher taxation. So I'm asking you, on principle, you keep talking about the glories of mixed.
So when he asked the question the first time, it's super clear. Like I could play it. It wasn't really clear because I played it quickly there. But when you listen to it, it's like, okay, everybody in the audience gets it, and then he kind of plays like, oh. Well, I'm not saying I put 100%. I never said that. It's like nobody's saying that you're saying that. But what's your logic?
Economy. So now tell me about the glories of capital. I've heard about the glories of high tax rates. I've heard about the glories of government-provided health care. Now tell me some of the glories of actual capitalism, which is the basis for all the things you're talking. Tell me why it's good.
Right. So now, look, when you, I use the example of the 91% and 70% to give you a sense of that. I was surprised, and you'd be surprised to find out that our economy was booming in those times. That's not.
Now this is where it gets interesting because he really starts to lose it. But just a quick thing, I wouldn't want to debate Ben Shapiro there. The guy's like a genius, pretty genius level, really, like intelligence-wise, whether you agree with him or not. He's like wicked smart, super quick, very witty. He can debate anybody. He loves debates. He'll debate anybody anytime. And I mean, I agree with a lot of his stuff. But he's dangerous. He's crazy. I wouldn't want to debate him. But Cenk Uygur, I would debate him all day long. First of all, he's wrong, so it's easy to debate somebody when you're pretty sure you got, the facts on your side. But he just doesn't have facts. He just has sometimes something anecdotal, and then he just always plays this middle ground thing where he's like, okay, look, I'm not, okay, and then says, stupid things like, I just don't like, kids getting killed, blah blah, or some silly, arbitrary points, like side points, like you're seeing here.
Not to say that is the right tax rate for us today, and so the exercise.
So but he's still not answering. It's like, okay, where do you put the? He's not answering this question. What's the solution? So you talk about you want higher taxes because the rich don't pay enough taxes. So give a number, put something out there. If you want people to pay more, what is it? And so he's asking, where do you stop it? And it's like, well, I'm not saying, of course we gotta have a balance. We gotta do this. Constantly playing that middle ground, and then swings it to the left.
As of finding the right tax rate is, guys, try to follow along, okay? It's called logic.
He's like surprised. He's like, what? What the hell's going on here?
So it would be preposterous to set the tax rate at 0. It would be preposterous to set it at 100%. So what we have to do as a society is figure out where we can maximize the most amount of good for the country.
Should it be closer to 0 or closer
for the
to
government,
100?
but not too much away from us. So, for example, the reason why when taxes are higher, it winds up being better for the economy is because it recirculates the money. So if you give it to the rich, this is hilarious. If you're uneducated, please at least don't.
Wow. I mean, I think the reason the whole crowd is kind of like, at first is because like they get like, dude, that's a whole trickle down economics thing. You just like start taxing. Well, I mean, it's kind of the reverse of trickle down economics. So trickle down economics was, you kind of reduce taxes and stuff. Even if the rich get richer, they end up spending that money, and that goes back into the economy. So he's kind of making that same case that they would shoot off about before. Trickle down economics doesn't work. So he's saying, okay, if you tax people more, it'll recirculate the money into the economy, and that'll create more. And then everybody's like, what? That's bull, man. You shot off when the other side said that, and as a case for reducing taxes so that more people spend, and they said that was baloney. The rich just end up getting richer. So what's the difference if the government does it? And then he insults the crowd by saying, "Come on,
please." If you give it to the rich, this is because it recirculates the money. So if you give it to the rich, this is hilarious. If you're uneducated, please at least don't make it obvious.
This is the most interesting conversation on taxes I've heard.
If you don't know the concept of recirculation of money, then go look it up. And so the way that it works...
Like, no, everybody understands the recirculation of money. It's the question of who's going to recirculate the money, the consumer or the government. So if you tax people more than 50%, then you're putting the weight on the government to recirculate the money the best way. If you have less than 50% tax, you're putting it on the people to recirculate the money the best way. The market will dictate instead of the government will dictate. So wants the government to dictate everything. And go check out what the Young Turks mean. That's what is the name of his show, The Young Turks. That's his news channel. And you read up on that and what that is. And he even says, like, we want revolution, not reform. That's a pretty powerful thing to say. We want revolution, not reform. So, like, they don't even want to change things. They want to destroy it and then just do what they want, which is basically just communism. Like, that's what they want is really just communism. And they talk about, like, he won't tell you what the tax rate is because he just wants to tax more. He endorses Bernie Sanders, who wants, like, tiered tax rates going up to, like, 50, 60, 70, 80%. So if you make, like, over $1 million, which, by the way, in Canada, there's 1 million millionaires. In Canada, there's 30 million people, well, maybe 40 million people. Essentially, 1 in 30, 1 in 40 people are millionaires. So you're saying we want those people to pay more money, and those are the people that own your shops, like local businesses, gas stations, and farms, and all this kind of stuff that actually hire and do a lot of stuff. You don't see these kind of people balling without paying exorbitant amounts of money in, like, anything from payroll taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, because if they're buying stuff, they're paying sales taxes on it. So if you're thinking of people getting rich, the only bad thing about people getting rich, in some sense, is if they don't spend it, if they're just stashing cash. So if someone's just getting rich and they're literally stashing all that money into their mattress, that's in some way a disservice to society, in a way. But I think that's, you're right to do that. If you want to build up savings to $1 billion in savings and it's not invested, it's not doing it, it's just sitting there. It's not even in a bank, so the bank can't leverage it. And by the way, banks can, it's called fractional reserve lending, so they can have 10% in the bank and loan out the other 90. So like 10 to 1. So if you have $1 million in the bank, they can loan out $10 million. They only need to have that 10% in reserves. And that's basically how the whole economy is set up, really. So anyway, that's its own thing. So this is his thing. Like, I'm going to look at his Twitter thing. It's just silly. It just shows how he talks and stuff like that. I'm running for Congress to represent CA25. If we fight together for this seat, it will be the people's seat. Fight with me by donating now. And then goes to his website there, which we'll check in for a sec. It's on. California governor sets special election to replace Katie Hill. We're at 998 volunteers. Okay, so, I mean, just normal stuff, right? But here's going. What the hell have you gotten done? You're a fake populist that has so far only passed a $2 trillion tax cut for the rich and for yourself. I mean, that's totally wrong. They showed that on average, like 80% of the population received tax cuts, so like on their income tax. I think it was like an average of $4,000 or $5,000 a year they saved on their taxes, and that's like 80% of the population in the states. You won't take any action on gun control, infrastructure, or anything that isn't related to your personal wealth or political career. He's talking about Donald Trump. It's like, oh, you got him. Good zing. You mean like your bed bug infested dump called the Doral? Wasn't your dad a slumlord? Like, he's asking, like, you're really going to catch him on, like he's going to respond to you. I'm tired of the GOP constantly bashing blue states and districts while pretending the red states are the only real America. On behalf of San Francisco, for the great economy, you're welcome. Yeah, I mean, Silicon Valley has a ton of money, but if you want the rich to pay, and you got homeless all over the place and people shitting all over the streets and sleeping on the streets and shooting up on the streets and free injection needle sites where you can go there and shoot up heroin that that was illegally brought across the border, and you don't even need to be a citizen, and you can get free healthcare and stuff and live on the streets and go to the soup kitchen. And so you can have all that in your state, but then you're going to shoot off about he's like telling nervous Nancy Pelosi. She always does look nervous. She was shaking and bobbing and weaving. Nervous Nancy Pelosi, who should be home cleaning up the dangerous and disgusting slums she is making of her district in San Francisco. And that's a valid point. If you go look at San Francisco, man, I think it's like, if you go look at the U-Haul website for how many U-Hauls are going into, like, to book a U-Haul going into California, it's cheap. It's easy. To get one coming out, it's like there's so many of them leaving, it's like a premium to even try to move out. Like, people are paying up the butt to just get the hell out of there because it's a shit pile now. Anyway, this guy's a total turd. And look at his website, too. Like, I should go back up here. Let's see. He had another website, Cenk 2020. Just the way he actually writes these things, like in the face, like kind of make it look artsy. Just take a normal photo. What are you looking at? What are you doing right there? You should put on a tie. Nobody wants to see your chest hair, you freak. Let's look at the issues. So I'm just going to read like the shorter ones because this is like too long. But like higher wages. The one thing that everybody can agree on regardless of political party is that wages are too low. Okay, no, that's not true. It's free market that determines the wages. It's not a political. The right doesn't say that you need to have higher wages. Wages aren't too low. They're actually where they are, presumably correctly, because they are where they are. The market constantly adjusts. So if there's a job that needs opening, like that nobody gets into, they pay more for it. So, you know, the amount that you get paid as a doctor is relative to that versus what you get paid as a plumber versus what you get paid as a janitor. So what are you saying, that a janitor, that there's a political party that, you know, disagree with whatever? The leader of the Republicans, Mitch McConnell, is blocking a bill that would at least increase minimum wage. Okay, I would even say that that's a state-by-state thing. I don't think Mitch McConnell should be passing a bill that would increase minimum wage. A federal minimum wage? No. And corporate Democrats are letting him get away with it. There should be a press conference every day about how Mitch McConnell is taking money out of your pocket and giving it to his wealthy corporate donors. What? First of all, how does a tax break put the money in their pocket? It just reduces how much they put in your pocket by, like, in terms of how much budget you get for doing your whatever bills you want to actually pass and pay for or not pay for. But you just see like this, if corporate Democrats don't want to fight for you, then they should step out of the way and let us do it. Just everything's like that. It's not even a nothing actually says anything. There's like no solutions here. It's just everything's like, for years they've been ripping our country apart. They've been dismantling the very foundation that is what created this very country, and they're dismantling the borders and doing all this stuff. We need to fight, and I'm going to fight for you. That's what they would say on the right or something like that, and they would trash them, and they would say that that's racist, basically, you know, implying that it's like a Christian nation, and these people like this are destroying that foundation and dismantling it completely. So if I were to say that and write that on my page, then I'd be the racist. But he can just say like flamboyant things like this, give no solution, and then go raise a bunch of money and just shoot off on Twitter all day. And then go make ridiculous leaps of logic, make himself look like a dummy, not able to debate, and then get like $100 million from YouTube to launch their channel like 10 years ago. And pretty sure they get like a whole bunch of weird money. They say that like in his website, he says he was self-built. Like he built he built this on his own. Look, yeah, it says right here, I started a media company from my living room. We started with absolutely nothing and built ourselves up from the ground. Yeah, I should have pulled up where they actually get all their money from. It's about 15 different sources. And, I mean, he could have started from the ground, that's fine. But it certainly didn't get to where it is all on its own. Anyway, the planet is on fire, and we don't have a second one. What? There's no second Earth? Well, damn, man. Elon Musk better get working on that. Which, by the way, is free market. So that's weird that the one guy solving the things is the one guy that has the ability to do whatever the hell he wants because he has all the money. Like, I don't see him coming up with a solution. I don't see Cenk Uygur coming up with a solution, or Congress coming up with a solution to build batteries or gigafactories that build cheaper, faster, better batteries, cars, creating a whole... The way that Tesla exists right now is a market rollout, like a almost near perfect market rollout in theory, of creating something big and expensive to kind of get the technology out, and then start refining the process so they can start mass producing for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So he does that in a total free market, right? They put out like a couple things like tax rebates, like you get a $5,000 tax rebate if you buy an electric car. A stupid thing, especially if it's a Tesla, because nobody's not buying a Tesla because $5,000 difference. If you're buying a Tesla, you're buying a Tesla. It's like an iPhone. You don't need a rebate on an iPhone to buy the iPhone. It's like $1,000 phone. If you're going to buy an iPhone, you're going to buy an iPhone, or rent one or whatever for $80 a month. So the same thing with like the way to actually get these things done is let the free market do these things. Let people put the money where they want. If they want to get an electric car and they can make good electric cars and it's cheaper to drive an electric car, or it's better for the environment and they feel good about that, then people will buy into that. And he's like he even builds most of the stuff in the States. So he's able to build stuff there, make tons of money, employ tons of people, push technology further and further, and these people complain about the very thing that, like, they just don't give him any solution at all. There's never any solution from these people, and this proves it. He's running for Congress, and this is the best he can write up. Like, this is pathetic. He doesn't even actually say, you know what, I'm gonna fight for minimum wage. I'm gonna fight for an X amount minimum wage for my district. I'm gonna go immigration rights. I'm gonna actually get them to repeal this bill XYZ ABC. Like, none of that is in here. Immigrants built this country. If you attack them, you attack all of us. Oh, shut the hell up, you dumb idiot. This is so stupid. And look, he's raising tons of cash. $200K. He's got to hit 400,000 in the first. We're going for 400,000 in the first 48. And I guarantee you, if you check this right here, absolutely, most money is not going to be valid for this. Maybe the 18 years old thing. But this right here, guarantee you, that's probably the number one most voided thing in this donation. It's going to be people giving money and, give me $100 or whatever, blah, and then put in that as a company or whatever it is. Federal contractor, maybe, I don't know. On my own card, not a business card or a card issued with another person. That would be another one that I bet you is wrong. And even prepaid cards. I would bet you there's a ton of prepaid cards going on to this. And then I'm a U.S. citizen or lawfully admitted permanent resident, i.e. green card holder. I bet you that's probably 20% of the vote of donations or something. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with him. I don't think he's going to make it, though. It depends who his competitor is going to be. I don't know who's running on the Republican side against it, but anyway. Also, last week there, I covered the whole chemtrail thing, and I kind of broke down the whole fact that most people are just misidentifying it. It's kind of semantics, but they do actively spray. They admit they spray. There's companies that get paid to do it, and I showed this. It's an active thing that's done, and Edward Snowden was on the Joe Rogan show, and he was basically saying, hey, I had access to tons of stuff, and I looked into it, and I didn't see anything with that or aliens. And I'm like, why would you mention that? Like, and why are you talking now? Like, Snowden, it's kind of weird, his position now, wherever he is, whatever he's doing. But for him to say that on the Joe Rogan show, it's kind of very, I don't know, it seemed misleading. Because we know it's happened. So for him to say there's like none, he didn't see anything like that. I mean, first of all, why would they even have that in some? It's not classified. It's not classified information. It's declassified. These patents are. You can go on Google Patents and see the patents for atmospheric aerosol injection, or solar radiation management, or what HAARP does with the aluminum particles in the ionosphere and stuff or whatever. Like a bunch of these crazy things. So, and then I just saw this today on Alex Jones here that kind of covers it, and it's pretty much what I said, but I just wanted to play because he's a little bit better than I am at riddling the stuff off. So here, let's take a look.
In this folder, I have CFR, I have Wall Street Journal, I have them all admitting Bill Gates is getting government funding and running quasi-secret programs, and they've now announced with aluminum salts, barium dioxide added to jet fuel at the corporate level, where even the pilots don't know.
And like he said there at the first about Bill Gates getting money for research projects, and we saw that in the interview before yesterday, where I think he was like a colonel or something like that, saying that's how they would mask these things, is by saying that they're research projects, because then they don't have to actually like confer with any other kind of regulatory bodies. It's a research project, so they can actually go do it like whatever they want.
And then under the patents, it aerosolizes it.
And look, even shows urine. I showed the exact same thing. He didn't show that, when I showed the clip, and just kind of weird synchronicity there.
Into the atmosphere and creates nuclei, creating artificial clouds. Now, I'm going to get to these clips. Let's play Joe Rogan with Edward Snowden a few weeks ago. And he asked Snowden, like Snowden knows everything in the world because he got some government files. Well, these programs aren't even run by the government. They're run by corporations and these private foundations, and are directed by government agreements. That's why Bill Gates is over the U.S. North American project, and he talks about it. They give hour-long speeches about this. And they talk about how the public's getting upset about other governments are. But then to the general proletariat, Joe Rogan tells us it doesn't exist. It just insults the intelligence. Yeah, there was mainstream news telling you just what I just told you.
So, I mean, wicked clip. It'll be in the description. You can check it out. I mean, these are really good clips to really listen to the full stuff. There's a lot more information to it, especially if you don't really believe it. If you're not sure, you're on the edge or something like that. You're like, what? Definitely check out the full clips, because it's truth bomb information. You can trail it back to a whole bunch of stuff. It's not like connecting dots or anything like that. It's like literally there's full picture documents that show this stuff. There's no dots here. These are scans, So we saw this guy here, Roger Stone. This was kind of a Trump associate, they call him. But he's been kind of like, he used to push Donald Trump into like trying to run for president like years and years ago. So he was kind of like the guy really egging him on from behind the scenes. So they convicted him of basically like lying to FBI. So when Mueller was doing that whole thing investigating Trump, basically this is one of the guys that they talked to, and they caught him, saying some stuff, lying to Congress, bank fraud, tax fraud, failing to register as a foreign agent for lobbying purposes. And he could get up to 20 years in prison. So there is a chance that Trump could pardon him. That might actually pardon him. But you can see here, Steve Bannon, who served as the campaign's chief executive, testified that Stone had boasted about his ties to WikiLeaks and founder Julian Assange, alerting them of pending new batches of damaging emails. Campaign officials saw Stone as access point to WikiLeaks, said Bannon. So basically, they're saying that the Julian Assange guy, the guy WikiLeaks, the guy that released all the information about Podesta and all the creepy stuff, like all this weird creepy stuff and like these official government emails talk about like they're actually using pedophilia terminology. There's like conspiracy stuff to like try to get rid of Trump. There was like the hacked Hillary emails, basically just a whole slew of things. And these are like verified emails that got leaked, and WikiLeaks like dumped all these, and they dumped tons of information. And really kind of the ways that they do this is kind of weird, but they actually have like underground cables that go across the ocean, like under the ocean, and they actually connect like massive internet connections. And they do that to they can do that sometimes to actually create secure connections or whatever or something. But at these access points and like kind of each end, or even in the water. Supposedly, like they got like submarines and stuff like that can actually go to these things and pick up the connection, kind of like a relay thing. They'll kind of they'll take what's coming in on one side and then pass through the other, but at the same time they're collecting everything. They're duplicating it as it's coming through. So I think it has something to do with that and something to do with the Russians doing that, but they don't really show how they actually got the WikiLeaks stuff. So, it's kind of just a theory, but I think that's how they actually were doing that, because it kind of stopped since then. There's like no WikiLeaks anymore, even though he's done. So I think they're getting piped data, and then supposedly they were giving that to Roger Stone. Now they said, Roger Stone, were you ever in communication with Julian Assange? And he said, nope, never talked to him, blah, blah. But apparently he was communicating with someone else that was communicating with Julian Assange. So he was like communicating indirectly, just stuff like that. I don't know. But we're going to see if he actually ends up going to jail, if he get a pardon. He'll probably go to jail for a bit anyhow. He didn't have to go straight to jail. The other lawyers wanted him to go straight to jail, but they kind of made a case. The judge actually made a case like, no, he'll just kind of keep doing what he was already doing while he was going through the process, I guess, for now. So we'll see what if Trump says anything about it. All right, so just a quick thing about the Epstein thing. So his brother kind of came out today and was just talking about how they got this during the autopsy, they got kind of a specialist. He hired his own specialist to review the autopsy when it happened, because as soon as it happened, he wasn't buying it. So it just kind of keeps pointing towards the fact that he didn't kill himself, that he was killed. There's a whole bunch of things wrong with the story. Basically, he complained that someone tried to kill him beforehand. He claimed like the week before, his lawyers, because he was put on suicide watch, but his lawyer said that this guy tried to kill him, who is a cellmate, and the cellmate is this cop who is serving like a life sentence, death penalty trial for 4 drug-related slings upstate. So basically, this guy had 4 bodies in his yard from drug dealers, and he's supposedly like a roided-up cop. And so like he's waiting a life sentence, and he was Epstein's roommate. I think a cop on roids that would kill drug dealers wouldn't mind strangling one of the biggest pedophiles ever. So anyway, and that's what they said. They said that he roughed him up, tried to choke him. He almost went unconscious. They put him on suicide watch. They got him off that because they said it was an attack. They finally get him off the suicide watch. And then just shortly after, they swap out the guards. The guards were like totally new guards. Wasn't even supposed to be there. They falsified the report saying that they were actually doing the checks every 30 minutes or an hour. They weren't doing it for like 3 hours. They just left it wide open. And the cameras didn't work, and a whole bunch of stuff like that. And Bill Barr, who I mentioned yesterday, is the Attorney General that Trump appointed. That they got to look into the whole Russia investigation thing, how that started. He even went and said, "Okay, the head guy of this, what do you call it? Like the prison warden, I guess. Yeah, warden." So Bill Barr ordered the removal of this guy from his post after ripping the serious irregularities at this facility. So basically, they're looking at this thing and they're like, "What the heck? How did you? This is like impossible. This like so much negligence, all this kind of stuff." So they're actively investigating this. It seems like there's really not much news coming out, but they're actively investigating this. They're trying to dig into the bottom of it, and it's guys like Bill Barr that are actually, his team or whatever, that's actually going to figure this stuff out, and it's just going to keep getting deeper and deeper. And I don't think this is going to be one of those conspiracies that just kind of fade away. I think it's actually going to be, I think it's going to be pretty serious. I just thought this was interesting since yesterday we also covered the flu shot stuff. They're really pushing it hard in Ontario for some reason. The health minister was caught faking it. She did that whole thing on the TV where she pretended to get the flu shot. She didn't get the flu shot at all. You zoom in on it, you see there's no needle, and they just slide it off her arm. So it's totally fake. It was ridiculous. I pulled up stats like showing the efficacy rates and stuff. The efficacy rate this year is going to be like 26%. It's pretty negligible, really, if you're still going to get the symptoms in some cases. They say you can't get the flu, but doesn't mean you can't get the symptoms. Just means you're not going to have the active flu virus to pass it around, and that if you do get the flu, actual flu virus, that your body, if it is the same flu, because it's usually not, usually it's not the right flu virus strain, but when it is, then you'll have those antibodies to be able to prevent it from it gestating in you. But that doesn't stop you from passing it on to like a sick person at a hospital or something like that. And they go through the whole thing, and they're like, basically, even at the end, they said, it's like the most, said evidence suggests that the influenza vaccine is the most effective way to protect against getting the flu and spreading it to others. That's totally false. That is it is not the most effective way. You know what the most effective way is? Washing your hands. Not coughing in people's face. Not going into really tight spaces for prolonged periods of time when you're showing symptoms or when you think you might have been exposed to the virus. So if you go to somewhere and they've been sniffling and stuff like that, you got to do some stuff to kind of cleanse yourself before you go and play with some babies and stuff like that. That's the best way to prevent the influenza. It's prevention, not pre-inoculation. But here, anyway, the article here is talking about the health unions and P.E.I. They're getting mad because, and it's a lot of them. It's actually several of them. Where's the list here? The Union of Public Sector Employees, the Prince Edward Island Nurses Union, the Canadian Union of Public Employees, and the International Union of Operating Engineers. So they're basically saying like all these people that like work in the hospital and stuff, you got to get the flu vaccine. And they're like, no, we don't want the flu vaccine. They're like, well, then you have to wear these masks. You got to walk around with these masks. So, what? I don't want to walk around with a mask. It's like, man, just let me walk around. If I get sick, I get sick. And they're like, oh, but you're going to spread it to others. Totally false. Totally false. Totally false. Especially with the flu. Especially the flu more than anything else, because you actually get the symptoms relatively quick. It doesn't take long for it to gestate or incubate or whatever it's called, like that, to start getting a critical mass where your body starts to produce all these antibodies, and then you get those symptoms. The symptoms are the result of your body fighting it and winning, and so you're blowing out all this mucus and stuff like that. That is, this virus trying to get purged from the body. So if you have any even the slightest symptom, or went around anybody that had the slightest symptom, that's your chance to kind of start preventing it and start to try to, make sure just eat some good food, drink a lot of water, don't get into alcohol, don't do anything that would compromise your immune system or slow you down for a day or two. Let your body just run like really tight for a couple of days, and you're not even going to see a symptom. You're probably not even going to notice a symptom. Your body will deal with it in and out. Even if you have the vaccine, you're still going to spread it. So even if someone coughs on you, you get hey, I'm not sick, I don't have to worry about it. Then you go see your grandmother or something, and she gets sick. You're still going to pass it. If the only difference is that you're not even going to notice it because your body's just going to beat it quick enough, but you're still spreading the virus. So it's still on your hands, still in your face, blah, blah, blah. You go give Nanny a kiss, and then boom, she gets sick because you didn't realize you even had the virus because you were pre-inoculated. So I would even suggest that it might even be worse because it makes people careless. It makes people, they might not realize that, because all they say over and over and over is that get it for yourself, but not even just for yourself. It's to protect all the old people from dying from the flu, which they don't even die from the flu. They die from usually like pneumonia. So they get something like, so you can't just say, oh, well, someone's going to get something that caused from an illness that you spread to them because you didn't get the vaccine and you sneezed in my grandmother's face and now she's dead. It's a total ridiculous argument. And if I keep seeing articles like this by staff, the Canadian press. Not necessarily this one. This one's actually talking about the grievance here. But then when they talk to the spokesman, right? The spokesman for blah 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 suggests that evidence suggests that the influenza vaccine is the most of it, even in their own statistics. Like, you can even look at this here, right?
It often begins with a tingle in your throat or a
Oh, like, we need to be explained what the flu is? What's the difference between a flu and a cold? Who cares? You're sick. See, they don't even tell you, like, they don't even give you any stats in here. Well, yeah, see, they, like, if they'll talk about what the actual... I pulled up a document earlier. I should have left it up. I'm realizing now that it was closed. But it's just showing the rates and stuff like that, and it goes anywhere between 20 and 40% effective. So 20 to 40% of the people that actually got it were prevented by it, and then they even go in to try to calculate. Okay, we tested, we found like 4,000 people with the virus. Half of them had the inoculation, half of them did. There's like no statistical difference between people who got it and didn't get it. And the people who actually get it end up. A lot of people have adverse effects in the way that they they'll have symptoms, even though they don't have the virus. They'll have the symptoms, so they'll feel achy and stuff like that. I mean, the whole symptom is the fact that your body's responding to it. So if you inject yourself with it and you don't get some kind of reaction to it, then it didn't do anything. I don't understand why that's not even some logic that's put out there. If you don't have a reaction to it, then how do you know your antibodies even produce anything worth producing if they don't attack, if they don't go after this dead virus, or the virus, then the virus didn't trigger it. And then if like, these antibodies don't just show up and then be like, oh, the virus is dead, boys, nothing to see here. No, they go to work cleaning house, and that means getting the sniffles. That means getting a fever. That means getting achy and stuff, because you're putting blood there with antibodies. So, I don't know, man. This just seems ridiculous, especially how much they're pushing it. And I wouldn't mind if they're pushing it so much if they would just really show both sides of it, especially in the case where you don't get to sue anybody if they botch something. And there's kind of an article here that I saw somewhere. I think it was back in this one. It was a medical thing here. Yeah, look at this. 38-year-old man awarded $2 million after botched circumcision results in vasectomy. So basically the court ended up giving him like $1.6 million because he went in for a circumcision and they gave him a vasectomy. And it's like, even on the report it said like, okay, it's clear for this, but they went and just did something different by mistake. So he sued the shit out of him. And he won. Right? And it's pretty straightforward. It's like, hey, this was botched. They botched it. They straight up botched it. And they paid the guy out. Happens all the time. They botch something, people sue, they get money for it. They don't always win. Sometimes sometimes technicalities, blah, blah, whatever. But you have the option. In this case, you do not. If this kills you, you do not get an option to sue. You have to go to a vaccine court specifically, and it's a committee that determines. It's not a jury. It's not nothing like that. And the money comes from your government, so you're not even suing the pharmaceutical company or anything like that. And by the way, when you go to the pharmacy, ask. I would like somebody to actually ask the pharmacy, hey, do you get paid per shot to deliver shots or anything like that, or is it everything's free, nobody gets any kind of money at all? I would be interested if somebody would actually ask that. But anyway, that's it for today's episode. If you like the episode, make sure you give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, give it a comment, share it, post it, download it, and re-upload it if you want. Doesn't matter to me. Yeah, that way it'll just kind of tell the Google algorithm that we do good content and that I'm consistent and that people actually like it. And if you made it this far, I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.